before I run the video, I want to just give you some preambles to it. The day that I did the filming at Menai Bridge was an extremely windy day. We don't get many calm days on Anglesey, but this one was particularly windy, particularly down by the water. The wind whips up the strait really briskly, so there is going to be some wind noise on the video which the camera picked up, for which I apologise. It's a problem I'm aware of and I'm trying to resolve it, but I'm not having a lot of success just at the moment, so that's the first thing to say, an apology for that. The second is that the walk I did and the video that I shot was all based around the town of Menai Bridge and the suspension bridge at Menai Bridge. The tubular bridge I didn't visit on this particular day, so the illustrations that I'm going to use for the tubular bridge are some still photographs that I took in 2018 when we went on a walk along the strait on the mainland side, and we ended up underneath the tubular bridge, and I took some photographs of it at that time. So that will be the illustrations for the section on the tubular bridge. And finally, the information that I've added to the video has been taken from this little book, which was the book that I bought from the Menai Bridge Heritage Centre in 2018 when we did the walk to both bridges. Move back so you can see the author, and that's contains the information that I've actually extracted from it and used in the video and on the voiceovers. So just a little credit to the authors of this little book for providing that information. So enough waffling from me, let's get in and have a look at the video. Side of the Menai Strait on Anglesey. I'm on the Anglesey side. You can see the water behind me, and the land beyond that is the mainland. I'm midway between the town of Menai Bridge and the village of Llanfair PG, the village with the longest station name in the world, not just Wales. I'm about halfway between the 2 points. And in this video I'm going to look at the 2 bridges that cross the Menai Strait, Telford Suspension Bridge and Stevenson's Tubular Bridge, which is the one that you can see there. I'm going to talk a little bit about the bridges and their history. It wasn't until the early part of the 19th century that crossing from mainland Wales to Anglesey became much safer than it had been for many centuries. Hitherto the only means of crossing was by ferry across the narrow and often hazardous waters of the Menai Strait. In 1801 Ireland joined the United Kingdom through the Act of Union. This meant that the numbers of people wishing to cross the strait increased as politicians commuted between Ireland and Parliament in London. The route from London to Holyhead became an important roadway. Although well travelled, the journey was still notoriously dangerous. In 1815 a civil engineer called Thomas Telford began working on ambitious improvements to the journey between London and the port of Holyhead. Recognising the danger to travellers that crossing the strait involved, Telford designed a groundbreaking piece of civil engineering, the Menai Suspension Bridge. It sealed his reputation as a leading civil engineer. Completed on the 30th of January 1826, the Menai Bridge was a triumph of civil engineering. It was the biggest suspension bridge in the world at the time. and that's the panel that explains the reason this is called Belgian Promenade, and it's because a group of Belgian refugees came to Menai Bridge in 1914, and as a gesture of appreciation to the people of Menai Bridge for providing them with food and shelter, they constructed this promenade. And it's a nice promenade too, and that's a view of the Stevenson's Bridge, Britannia Bridge, and just round the corner is the other bridge across the Menai, which we're going to look at next. As we round the corner, the bridge comes into view. And that's the modern at Menai Bridge, and in front of us is the ancient. And I'll just nip through this gap. Hopefully the wind's not quite so bad here. And that's a fine view of Telford's Bridge. Construction of the bridge started in 1819. The stonework on the piers was finished by 1824, and then began the enormous task of raising the chains that would hold up the central span. It certainly is a thing of beauty, as well as serving a function. Tunnels were driven into solid rock on either shore to anchor the chains. Then the first section of chain was secured on the mainland side, drawn up to the top of the eastern tower and left to hang down to the water level. Another chain was drawn up to the top of the tower on the Anglesey side. The central section of chain, weighing 23.5 tons, was then loaded onto a raft, carefully manoeuvred into position between the towers and connected to the dangling chain. Then 150 men used block and tackle to draw the chain up to the top of the Anglesey Tower to complete the span. The remaining 15 chains were raised in a similar manner over the next 10 weeks. Rods were then hung from the chains and bolted to iron bars that were used as the base for the wooden road surface. The bridge finally opened on the 30th of January 1826 to great fanfare. Its completion, along with other improvements to the road by Telford, reduced travel time from London to Holyhead from 36 hours to 27. Telford wasn't just responsible for the design and construction of the Menai Suspension Bridge. He was involved in the improvement of the whole road between Shrewsbury and Holyhead. As part of that work, he designed these milestones, and there were 84 of them in that distance. This one at Menai Bridge, close to the Heritage Centre, indicates the distance to Holyhead, and below the distance in each direction to the next coaching inn where horses would be changed. And this is a replica milepost of the milepost that can be seen along the A5 going up to Holyhead, and this has been installed by the Institution of Civil Engineers. On the mainland side at Gwynedd, and when Telford did the design for the bridge, he also designed the ironwork, and one of the things that marks out the design is this sunburst which he put onto the fencing on this side, and the gates have been, a lot of the gates have been removed now, but that's a Telford design of the sunburst gate and fencing. So we're in the gatehouse now on the mainland side and looking across towards Anglesey. It's difficult really to capture the beauty and the grace of this bridge when you're standing on top of it, but we've already been down on the into Menai Bridge and looked at it from below. But the size of the chains here is remarkable, and we'll have a look at the chains in a bit. I'm going to walk back across the other way now. With a bit of luck, the wind won't be quite so strong on this side. So let's go. This is the first pillar that carries the inscription to Thomas Telford, and it gives the opening date 1826.
when these were manufactured, because they're all sectional and they were bolted together on site, when they were actually made, before they were transported, they were immersed in warm linseed oil to prevent them from rusting. I think we're at low tide. But this stone was quarried on Anglesey. It's from Penman, which is the far east of the island.
The bridge has been modified and reconstructed many times over the years. The road surface was damaged in severe winds in 1839 and needed repair. The wooden deck was replaced with a steel one in 1893, and with the coming of modern vehicles, the previous weight limit of 4¼ tons became an impediment. Overweight vehicles would have to carry their loads over in 2 or more trips. So between 1938 and 1940, the old chains were replaced with new steel ones, all while traffic continued to pass. In the autumn of 1999, the bridge was closed for several weeks to completely replace the road surface and strengthen the bridge. Also in 1940, the pedestrian walkways were added on each side of the span, and this was the time when the toll was finally abandoned and it became free to pass over the bridge.
That's like a knuckle of the chain where it's bolted through. I would imagine these bolts are not the originals, and maybe some of the chain sections aren't original. But this is the anchorage. Here we are back on, excuse me, more or less supported road, ground supported road. So we're on Anglesey now, back in the little garden, and we've got some sunshine, not before time. There's a big line of cars coming. Okay. And here we are on Anglesey. As rail travel became increasingly popular in the mid-19th century, it was deemed necessary for a rail link across the Menai Strait for the convenience of MPs travelling to and from Ireland. This bridge would need to be at least 100 feet above high water level to allow tall sailing ships to move underneath it. It would also need to support 2 train tracks across its main span. To complete such a bridge today would still be considered a difficult prospect. The challenge was handed to Robert Stephenson, son of George, who was one of the leading railway and civil engineers of the time. His design also included William Fairbairn and Eaton Hodgkinson. Many design ideas were considered, but the one favoured would be of a revolutionary new tubular design. This would incorporate 2 main spans of 460 feet and 2 additional spans of 230 feet made from giant wrought iron tubes. There would be 2 tubes for each span, 1 for each of the railway lines. At first, Fairbairn thought that the tubes would need support from chains in the manner of a suspension bridge to stabilise the structure. Tests and careful mathematical investigation showed that the chains would not be needed. By creating a tubular system, the forces of compression and tension acting upon the tube as the train travelled across would be dissipated or spread out across all 4 surfaces of the tube, and the bridge would retain its structural integrity. This would result in being able to span a greater distance and carry the force of heavy loads crossing the bridge. Construction of the Menai Bridge was started in 1846 and completed 4 years later in March 1850. The 2 larger tubes over the strait were constructed on shore on the banks of the Menai Strait before being floated out into place and hydraulically jacked into position. Stephenson's other tubular bridge in North Wales, the Conway Bridge, was finished in 1848. The completion of both signalled the opening of the Chester to Holyhead Railway. Menai Bridge remained in use and was claimed to be the most easily maintained railway bridge in Britain until 1970, when the bridge caught fire. A group of local youths exploring the tubes of the bridge accidentally dropped their burning torch and the bridge roof caught fire. Some of the tubes were visibly sagging after the fire and the bridge was classed unsafe. It was not until 4 years later that normal rail services across to Anglesey were resumed. During reconstruction after the fire, the bridge changed dramatically. The tubes were no longer used, and the deck was supported by arches spanning between the towers. The original towers remain, but have also been altered to suit the new design of the bridge. In 1980, 10 years after the fire, a road deck opened above, and this now carries the A55 across to Anglesey. Stephenson and Fairbairn's tubular design went on to influence many engineers, including Brunel, and its principles are still widely used today. The Conway Bridge is still in its original tubular form and is in use over 155 years later. This is the famous St Mary's Church, which is referred to in the village name, Lanver. That very long village name that I can't pronounce. But this is the church that's described in that village name. And the reason I've come here is to have a look at this memorial. And the plaque will explain what the memorial is. It's to the men that died building the Britannia Bridge. Let's go up and have a look. I can't remember how many were actually killed building it. You can see the dates that more or less cover the period of construction of the bridge. Don't know if it's camera's picking it up. Ah, that's better. And of course, when it was rebuilt in the 1970s, sadly there were 2 deaths then as well, and those 2 men are remembered right at the bottom. William Brooke of Dewsbury, Yorkshire, who died of typhus fever. Which is unusual, isn't it, for a civil engineering death? But that's quite a nice epitaph to the man. I'm not sure whether they were buried here. They probably were. Here we can see Britannia Bridge in its current form. No longer does it have the tubular structure that caught fire. The steel arches were added to support the new rail deck during the rebuilding of 1972. And above the railway is the A55, now known as the North Wales Expressway, which is the other way to drive onto Anglesey from the mainland. The original route being the A5 over Telford's magnificent Menai Suspension Bridge. So from the Menai Strait at Stevenson's Tubular Bridge, I'll say goodbye and thank you for watching.